So today in our multi-step percent problems, we're calculating simple interest. So what is simple interest? Simple interest is defined as an additional amount. It's calculated by a percent, and that's why it's in this unit, that is paid on a loan, or it's acquired through savings. So if you guys, parents, or when you grow up, if you get a loan from the bank, they loan you money, but they don't just let you keep it or borrow it without a fee. So what interest is they say, hey, we'll let you borrow this money, but you're going to pay us 4.6% on what you borrowed. Okay. Now, vice versa, if you put your money in the bank into a savings account, sometimes those savings accounts have interest. They might say, you get 0.5% by putting your money into this account. So that is called interest, and we can calculate interest with an equation. Okay. So we have this equation, I equals PRT, and the I is the variable for interest. The P is the principal, and principal means the initial amount. So it's like the principal is the amount you either put in or the amount that you borrowed from the bank. R is a rate, and that is the percentage of what you're paying for interest. Your rate is either like a 4.2% or a 5%. So that is your rate. And then T is time, and we're going to calculate time in years. So on some of these examples, it might have it in months, and you'll have to convert that to years. Okay. I is interest, P is for principal, R is for rate, and T is for time. So our equation says I equals PRT. You'll notice that the P, the R, and the T are all side by side. All of those variables are side by side. We know that if a variable is right next to another variable, then it tells us that we're going to multiply. So we're taking the principal times the rate times the time. Okay. So important notes: interest, principal is your initial or your starting amount. Rate is always a percent. And then time, always use years. Okay, so those are some things that you need to remember. So let's take a look at an example together. It says you invest $500 in a savings account that has an interest rate of 5.2%. How much interest will you earn in 4 years? Okay, to show our work, we're going to use the equation I equals PRT. So we got to write that on our paper because it shows why we're multiplying all these things. So the first step for all of these problems is to write the equation I equals PRT. Okay, then we're going to fill in what we know. We don't know what the interest is, so that's going to stay in I. Instead of a P, I'm going to put in the principal, which is $500. Instead of an R, I'm going to add in 5.2%. And then instead of T, I've got 4 years. Okay, so then we can use our calculator to help us solve. We just put in 500 times 5.2%. And remember to include your percent sign on your calculator, or you'll have to convert 5.2 to a percent, times 4, and we get that he will earn $104 in interest. Okay. All right. Let's try another one. Shane invests $1,200 in a savings account that has an interest rate of 7.9%. How much interest will he earn in 2 years? So again, we're going to use the equation, and that's our first step, is to write that down. Our equation is I equals PRT, where P, R, and T is principal times rate times time. Then we're going to fill in the amounts that we know. Okay, we're going to leave interest as an I because we don't know what the interest is. That's what we're solving for. Then we have 1,200 because that was the initial amount, or the principal amount that he borrowed, or sorry, that he invested. And then our rate is 7.9%. So again, either leave this as a percent and use the percent sign on your calculator, or convert it to a percent times time, which is 2 years. Okay, so we just multiply all this in our calculator, and we get that the interest he will acquire in 2 years is $189.60. Remember, when we are working with money, we're always going to round to the hundredths place because money always goes out 2 decimal points. Okay, so Jessica buys a car at $8,500. The loan on her car has an interest rate of 2.2%. What is the total that she's going to repay if the car takes 7 years to pay off. So this one is a little bit different. Anytime it's asking for the total, it's asking for the amount she borrowed plus whatever she has to pay in interest. So there's an additional step at the end where after we find the interest, we have to add it to the principal amount that she borrowed. Okay, a lot of people miss these because they just find the interest and then they think they're done. But be careful, if it says total, you've got to add it on to the original or the principal amount that was borrowed. Okay, so first use your equation. I equals PRT, interest equals principal times rate times time. Okay, our I is going to stay an I because we don't know how much she borrowed, or we don't know how much interest it is. We're going to substitute our P for $8,500 because that's our principal. We're going to substitute the R with 2.2% as a rate because that's the interest rate. And then we're going to substitute 7 for time because she has this loan for 7 years. Okay, we're going to multiply all that out in our calculator and we get that she has $1,309 in interest. To get the total that she's going to repay, we take $8,500 plus $1,309 and we get a $9,809 total. That's how much she's going to repay, her principal and her interest combined. Okay, let's take a look at one last example. It says Jamie invests $12,250 into the stock market, and this particular stock makes a 3.4% interest. What's the total amount of money that he's going to have in 12 years? Okay, so we're going to start with our equation. I equals PRT. I equals principal times rate times time. And then we're going to substitute in what we know. I is going to stay an I because that's what we're searching for is the interest. Equals 12,250 because that's the principal times a 3.4% rate times 12 years because that's how long he keeps it. Okay, we get $4,998 in interest, but that's not our final answer because it asks for the total. To get our total, we're going to take what he invested, the principal amount, $12,250, plus the interest that he acquired, $4,998, and we get that the total he'll have in 12 years is $7,248.